Okay, so far we've seen tuples where we've sent two bits of information back, or tuples where two bits of information have been sent back, for example, from the enumerate function. But actually, in theory, the tuple could group billions and billions of values together. In practice, they're used really for pairs and triples, etc. In the next example, we're just going to group some triples together. So this is the UniApp example, where we're building a simulator which, in theory, broadcasts a message to a group of users. And last week we had three lists: names, user IDs, and info. Which the info would be either the program, if it's a student, or the job title if it's a member of staff. Instead of doing that, of course, we can use tuples to record that information. So we just have, in this new version of the code, we have one list, a list of all the users, but each entry in the list is a tuple of information where the tuple contains the name, the user ID, and the info. Okay, so here's the database code now. You can see I've got the same users as before, exactly the same data. I've got a guest, admin, staff 1, staff 2, and so on. But all the information for each user, so the guest, Alice, none for the user ID, it's guest, and none for the job or for the program because it's not a student or a member of staff. They're stored. All that information is stored together in a single tuple. So I create these seven users, and then I create a list out of those users. Okay, so you can see that my list here called users has 7 items in it, and each item is a tuple of information. This is much. Not only is this kind of simpler to look at, it's actually much less error prone because, you know, if I'm going to add a new item to this list, I just have to create the item, and I can see that I've got the name and the user ID and the other information all put together in the same place. So it's easy to add new entry or modify existing ones without making mistakes. Okay, in terms of the code, how do we use that information in that list? So previously in the list, we had to loop over the list of the users and then get the user ID and the info from the other lists. Now they're all in one list. So the code for the main program now gets the users from the database. So users equals db.getUsers. That's coming from that function that returns that list. And then we can just loop over the list. And when we loop over the list, what we're expecting from this users list is that each item will have a name, a user ID, and an info. And then the rest of the code, so this for statement here, just loops over those items in the list, but each item, remember, has a tuple of 3 things, and then we can use those 3 things just in the same way. So the rest of the code is pretty much the same as before. We're just getting the name and the user ID and info in a slightly different way. Okay, the main broadcast loop of the code as well is exactly the same, except that instead of getting the information from those 3 lists, we've now got one list that's got all the information contained in it. Okay, I'm gonna. Oh yes, and there's a little comment each time around the loop we get a new tuple. So I'm going to finish this this video here, and then we'll move on to look at dictionaries in the next one.